He is going to tell us, we are going to hear about his patient story. So let's welcome him to the stage.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you for the great introduction. Thank you, Amir and Jad, for that presentation there. Such an honor and privilege to stand here with you all. And what an incredible weekend this has been, full of learning and connection, shared experiences. It's truly a blessing to see all these faces and connect with you all and just hear you guys' stories. I'm deeply grateful and humble for the opportunity to stand here today to share my journey living with Fabry disease. My hope is that in hearing my story, you might find encouragement wherever you are in your own journey. Hello, my name is Jaira, and my Fabry journey began in December of 2021 when I was 30 years old. At the time, my family and I were getting ready to celebrate my son's first birthday. It should have been a joyful, ordinary weekend celebrating our son. But around 3 a.m., everything changed. I screamed in my sleep. My wife woke up, terrified, trying to get me to respond, but I couldn't. I wasn't able to wake up. Thankfully, my sister-in-law was able to call 911, and when EMS arrived, I was barely responsive. I could answer some questions, but my speech didn't make any sense. And on the way to the ER, I lost consciousness again. When I got to the hospital, I was only responsive to pain. A CT scan revealed something serious, a subarachnoid hemorrhage. An artery in my brain had ruptured. The part of my brain that controls breathing, consciousness, heart rate, life itself was affected. The mortality rate for something what I had was between 50 to 80%. And doctors needed to transfer me immediately for emergency surgery. But there was a problem. There were no available ICU beds in the area. And after calling 3 hospitals, they found one later that morning, and I was transferred. Days passed, swelling in my brain increased and made the surgery too risky. It wasn't until almost a week later that doctors were able to finally place a stent in the ruptured artery. I spent 2 weeks in the ICU and another week in their neuro observation unit. And by God's grace, I made it home. I got to celebrate Christmas with my family and my son's first birthday, just a little bit later than planned. And after the holidays, reality set in. My life became a series of appointments, follow-ups with neurology, cardiology, and eventually a geneticist. While I was still in the ICU, the doctors told my wife and I they had suspected something deeper, possibly a genetic condition. But another setback came. In February 2022, just a couple months later, I had a second stroke. I remember waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I tried to get up and walk, but I couldn't. But my wife was able to call ER, or call an emergency, and I initially was sent home from the emergency room, saying everything was fine. But my wife knew something wasn't. She trusted her instincts and reached out to my neurosurgeon and cardiologist, who told us to go back and demand an MRI. Nearly 24 hours later, from symptoms to finally getting an MRI, that scan confirmed I had a stroke. Finally, in March of 2022, after an additional genetic panel, we got an answer: a mutation in the GLA gene, Fabry disease. And for the first time through all of this, we felt a sense of relief. Not because the diagnosis was easy, but because we finally knew what we were dealing with. We could move forward with a plan. The months that followed were filled with rehab, recovery, and beginning treatment. I started infusions. I worked hard in therapy to regain strength and independence. And slowly, I began to see light at the end of the tunnel. But then came another difficult moment. After 6 months on medical leave, I was told I wouldn't be able to return to the job as an oncology research nurse. The same precautions that kept me from lifting and carrying my own son also kept me from returning to the job I loved. That was a different kind of loss. Not physical, but deeply personal. Today, it's been 4 years since my diagnosis, and just last month I celebrated my 100th infusion.
Wow.
Through all of this, I've learned something important. Growth can come from the most difficult circumstances, because I was the first in my family to be diagnosed. Other family members, including my mom, we were able to get tested, diagnosed, and start treatment. What felt like the start of something devastating also became the start of something life-saving for others. This journey has changed how I see life. I've learned to live through a lens of gratitude, to focus on what I have versus what I've lost. And there's still so much to be grateful for. Just 2.5 months ago, my wife and I welcomed our daughter into this world. My son is now 5, and I get to watch him grow. Not just a kid, but as a big brother, a musician, a comedian. And for those who attended the conference last time that it was here in San Diego, a boy who loves ketchup. These are the moments I try not to take for granted. I've also learned that recovery is not linear. There are good days, and there are hard days. There are moments of strength, and moments where I grieve the life I had before all this. And that grief doesn't disappear. But alongside that grief, there is something else. There is gratitude. There is hope. I'm thankful for the opportunity to still be here, to still live, to still love my family, to still grow. I'm thankful for the people God has placed in my life, my wife, my family, my friends, and this Fabry Disease community. A community that understands, that supports, that lifts each other up. Every day, I'm still learning what it means to live with Fabry disease. But here's what I do know. No matter what your abilities are, you can still live with purpose. No matter how difficult today may feel, you can still choose hope for tomorrow. Having a rare disease doesn't have to define the outcome of your life. What matters is what we choose to focus on, and how we choose to show up each and every day. Before I close, I want to invite all of you into something simple but powerful. Because it's one thing to hear a story, it's another to pause and reflect on your own. I want you to take a piece of paper or your meeting notes, or there's this fabulous FSIG anniversary notepad here. Or if you're like myself, I use my notes app on my phone a lot, so you could use that too. But I want you to write down one thing you've overcome. Maybe it's a diagnosis, a tough season, a moment where you didn't think you'd make it, but somehow you did. Take a moment to really sit with that. I'll give you a couple minutes. Does it mean I'm still good on time? Okay. And because this is your story. This is your strength. Take your time. Take a seat. If you haven't finished yet, it's okay. You can do this when you get back to your homes. And now on the other side of the piece of paper, or on a note, I want you to write down one thing you want to achieve. One thing you want to work on. This could be a physical goal, like to walk a mile or jog a mile without stopping. To keep a plant alive, or to learn a new recipe, or try new food. Or it could be a personal growth. Like for me, I'm learning to be more present, to live in the now, to appreciate more of life's gifts. I'll give you a minute here. Okay, here's what I want to do next here. I want everyone to take this piece of paper or take your notes app and write it on a piece of paper when you get home. And put it somewhere where you'll see it often, again and again. Maybe in your wallet, in your car, in your nightstand. Or for me, it's the front of the refrigerator door. And when you come back for the next year's FSIG conference, I want you to pull it out again. And look at what you wrote today to see how far you can go. I want to leave you with one of my favorite writings by Apostle Paul. He wrote a letter to the Romans here. He says to be joyful in hope, patient in the pains, and faithful in prayer. And remember, don't let Fabry dim your light. Shine your light. Thank you.